Welcome to Behind the Badge with your hosts
Lieutenant Ryan Williams
and Officer Cammie Vandermolen.
your source for all things Fondy Police.
KFIZ today on a Friday. That means Behind the Badge, our weekly visit with the Fond du Lac Police Department. Lieutenant Ryan Williams, Officer Cammie Vandermolen, Recruitment and Retention Specialist. And now you guys did not check your chairs before you sat down, did you?
Why is that?
Well, if you listened earlier this week on Tuesday, your friends from the Sheriff's Office were here, and that meant School Resource Officer Deputy Kieran Weed was here. And so I told him he should check his chair just in case LT may have left, a whoopee cushion or a thumbtack. Or
Oh, yeah.
And so Deputy Weed said, no, nothing under mine. But he said, maybe I'll have to leave something on Lieutenant Williams' chair.
That sounds like Kieran, doesn't
It
it?
does sound very much like him.
He did not, though. He did not. But no, great conversation with him about the end of the school year. And I think he's a big KFIZ listener, so he's tuning in to Behind the Badge every week to see what you're
Yeah, and
gonna
speaking of the
entail.
Sheriff's Department, we just had a tactical operations last week, included with the Sheriff's Department, with a pretty big call. And just something, I don't know if it's the beginning of summer or what, but we've had 3 larger scale tactical calls in the last month here. I think we kind of talked about one last week, but it's been busy. But it's kind of like this is what we prepare for. This is the training. We never want like these kind of calls, but it's also good a little bit for our team to stay fresh on our tactics and problem solve things that can come along, because we went a whole year without a tactical SWAT call. Yeah.
Wow.
So now we've had 3 this month, and that's what usually happens is they come in clumps.
Sure.
There's something in law enforcement about the rule of 3. I'm not saying there's not going to be another one, but a lot of things happen in 3s in law enforcement. And so yeah, we had another deployment, and we talked a little bit before the show about how you saw some operators kind of riding on the side of the Bearcat, and yes, that was one of those operators, which was driven by one of our Thames medics from the fire department. So,
Wow.
we have 4 firefighters, I should say firefighter paramedics, that train with us every single SWAT training day. They love the Bearcat, so much so that they probably know more about it than a lot of our normal officers, because they'll take it to training a lot of times. So once in a while, if we have an extra Thames medic, we'll have them hop in as the operator of our Bearcat during tactical situations. But then we'll always have 1 or 2 in the back as well, in case something goes bad, then we can be ready for a rescue of some sort.
It was quite the visual. I was saying I was parked at Main and Johnson, the intersection in town, and did not expect to see that, and all of you guys hanging on that with your gear and whatnot.
Yeah, I was in the negotiator van and saw them come around the corner as well, and it was a visual even for a law enforcement officer who's seen a lot of them in their training and their tactics and that type of thing. But it was kind of neat to see them coming all back safe and on the outside of the Bearcat.
And despite like the looks of everything, and I know there's some heat in law enforcement about us looking too militaristic, the purpose of SWAT is to save lives.
Right.
Now, we just talked about 3 critical instances. We ended up taking someone into custody without injury on each one of those. That's a success, 100% a success. Sometimes having that initial presence kind of convinces that person to not put up a fight. Say, okay, well, they got me, I'm just going to give up, or with minimal force necessary, because I know I'm not going to win. And that's kind of what our purpose is to save lives, and that's the purpose of SWAT, is to help save people's lives.
I assume there's some sort of a debrief after an incident like that, and if yes, how soon is it? I mean, as soon as I saw you guys getting back there, are you comparing notes, figuring out what worked, what didn't, or do you take a little bit of time off, or do you save that for the next training? How does that all work?
So this is kind of a weird situation, because in hindsight, we probably should have stayed after and done a debrief after the first one. Not expecting to be 3, but we have a SWAT, our monthly SWAT training coming up. So we were like, we're just going to debrief then. Well, then another one stacks up, and now another one stacks up. So during that SWAT training, we're going to debrief. Obviously, we have body cam and stuff like that we can review. There was minimal issues, but there's always ways to get better. So we're going to kind of like just compare notes and see where we're at, and then officers, there's a lot of not SWAT operators that they've been doing some sort of informal kind of on shift, like debriefs of the calls and stuff like that.
Got it. Appreciate that information, and takes us to our topic for today, Rescue Task Force.
Yeah, so some people might notice a larger presence on by the Macy ramp this last week, and there's going to be some next week as well. And what we're doing is we're working with the Fond du Lac Fire Department, training together in what's called Rescue Task Force. And what basically Rescue Task Force is, it's preparing us for what happens after an active shooter. A lot of times, in fact, cops are really good at preparing for an active shooting event. Like, we know that our goal is to stop the killing, and then after that, stop the dying, and we're going to do cop stuff. Without a better word for that. What we don't train as often is, okay, now what? Let's say the shooter's down, or we can't find the shooter. How do we get these people, these survivors, to the cool way to say it is the bright lights and cold steel, but what that means is basically the operating table, because that's their best chance of survival. Like, there's stuff that we can do to them on the field as far as giving them tourniquets and chest seals, and there's a little bit more advanced care that the paramedics can do that we can't do, as far as like starting IVs and stuff like that. And then there's some stuff that you just they can only do on an operating table. So we need to come up with ways to speed up that process. And what Rescue Task Force is basically a way to get paramedics to the scene quicker. So let's say we have an active shooting event. When we have an event like that, there's immediately what we call a hot zone. And a hot zone is anywhere where someone could be a victim or of that active shooting event. So like if it happened in a house, anywhere you could see that house and there could be more like gunshots or whatever, you're in the hot zone. It wouldn't make sense for EMS to respond in a hot zone, right? Because then all of a sudden they're just another victim when they're supposed to be trying to help the victims, right? So law enforcement's job is to make the hot zone what we call a warm zone, which a warm zone means we're pretty sure that the threat is down, and anywhere else where the threat could be, we're covering with like with an officer or with a team or a barricade or whatever. So what we do is we work to have paramedics get escorted in by a group of officers so they can get in the scene faster. And that's basically what a rescue task force is. It's a way to get paramedics, and they have armor and stuff like that they wear, to get them in the scene and assessing patients and moving patients out faster, and for active shooter events where there's a lot of potential casualties. And so what we're doing is, of course, like if we're going to be doing this live, we'd like to train it, right? You never want your first time to be live, right? So we try to replicate that. So we work with the fire department. I've made a lot of dummies. We use some of the fire department's dummies.
And some of our CPR dummies.
Some of our CPR dummies. I fashion. But the thing is, like, there's very few cities, if you really think about it, that have dealt with a true mass casualty event. We went the Boston bombing is something that comes to mind automatically. But you're talking about just 50, 25, 50 people. There was a parade shooting down on Lake Park. The Waukesha parade would be a mass casualty event. So how are you preparing to deal with that, and what's your best way to get patients out of there? We look at things that happened in history. The Aurora theater shooting, that was a very good sign of why you need to have established rescue task force, because what happened was officers arrived on scene and they actually took the suspect into custody pretty quick. It was communicated over the air, but it wasn't. I don't think everybody it resonated with everybody, and so officers were trying to get paramedics into that theater where there was 45 some victims, and no one was coming, and they were like, "Where is it? Where are they? It's safe. Come in, come in, come in." And they were not coming in. So then officers were just kind of throwing victims in their squad cars and going to a hospital. Well, there's an issue with that. And the issue is that not all hospitals can take all patients, right? There's different levels of hospitals, just like there's different levels of everything. And not all hospitals hospitals can take certain gunshot wound victims and stuff like that. So it's really important for law enforcement to team up with EMS, medical, or firefighters to figure out the best way to get the right patients to the right places. So, you know, like Freighter and Theta are kind of like our main hospitals that are closest to us that can handle like really higher degree stuff. So we need to figure out if there's openings, right? They could have something else going on, and it's working with the firefighters that kind of help us do that. And then the other thing that we really stress in this training is communication. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of difference in communication. So we've learned that we're also doing active shooter incident management, which is more of a manager style for active shooters. So we've been doing a lot of training lately. But we found out that firefighters talk different than us. Where if I go on the radio and I was trying to call someone, I would say 152 to 28. That means my badge number, I'm trying to call Cami. Firefighters actually say it in the opposite order. They would say 28 from 152. So like, it's not a major thing, but it
makes a big difference.
It's how they train. So like if we use contact teams and command, so they would say command to contact one, or they'd say command from contact one, and we would say contact one to command. So it's important that we know those differences, because when we get in those high stress instances, that we can get some clarification, because kind of clear up the fog when under stress. So we're learning from each other. We're learning how to operate. We're learning what they require as far as treating patients and stuff like that. But there's a lot that goes into it. We're trying to do the training during briefing training, which makes it go pretty quick. Mm-hmm. They're kind of quick hitters, but they're good reminders. And we're trying to assess where we're at to see if we need to do more training on an annual basis, a yearly basis, a couple years basis. So it's been really good. We've been doing an amazing job. I'm gonna say amazing job of working with our partners, whether it be the sheriff's department or the firefighters in the city. Of how much that has grown in my years here. Mm-hmm. The fact that we have firefighters with our SWAT team, and we learn from each other a lot of stuff, and that we co-train with the county SWAT team a lot now. Like we used to do like maybe one a year. Now we're talking 6 to 8 trainings a year that we're having those guys out, that we're training with them. So it's really, we've really built some really good partnerships, which is going to make everybody safer in the long run.
Speaks to the effectiveness, I would say, of the recent calls you guys have had. The fact that you work so well with all these different organizations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that's all we have to say about that, but we do have to remind you, we have a hiring process coming up again.
Oh, that's right.
So this is really important. We had a process, and we did have some applicants, but a lot of them aren't going to be ready until like December. So we have seats actually saved in our academy for August. So there's an academy August. Law enforcement agencies get the first say on seats, and we have 4 seats saved, and we have no fills on them right now. We have some other things like some possible laterals and things like that going on out there. So we have other officers of interest, but we would really like to fill those seats. So that's why we're having this process on June 5th. So if you know anyone that's interested in law enforcement, come check us out on YouTube, our Facebook page, see what we're about. You can contact myself or Cami. We can get you a ride along. What I always say is try it before you buy it. Come and see what we're about. Like, we talk about stuff on the radio, but we could talk all day. Come and see it. Like, it's true. Mm-hmm. Like, we have really improved the culture, and I think we're really headed in a great place right now. So get those applications in. We're starting to run out of spots, but we still have some spots available.
Awesome. Behind the badge, Lieutenant Ryan Williams, Officer Cami Vanderbilt joining us.